coming. Thank you everyone for standing. This is a great turnout. We've been working on this for months. I am psyched to see everybody here. So let's kick this thing off. Our first session this morning, our first guests are kind of a power duo in the worlds of sports and entertainment. They will be the ones bringing back the XFL in February of next year. Please welcome Dany Garcia and Gerry Cardinale.
Good morning, everyone.
So for those who don't know, so Dany is co-owner. She is chair of the XFL. She is also a film and television producer. Gerry is founder, chief investment officer, I think technically also managing partner of Redbird Capital Partners, which has probably bought a piece of your favorite pro sports team. So Dany, let me start with you. The XFL has this interesting history. Its first season, it lasts one season. Its second season, the pandemic cuts that season short, and then it files for bankruptcy. What made you look at it and say, yeah, want to buy that?
You know, I actually have a long history with the XFL. So I was around in that first iteration, which was a little bit crazy, a little bit anti-NFL. And the second iteration, I felt, wow, this has hit the sweet spot. I'm like, this is extending the football proposition. It's in spring. These athletes are playing with chips on their shoulders, and the product that we saw on television was excellent. So in my mind, as I was looking at this, first of all, I had wanted to be a part of that. So unfortunately, when it did go into bankruptcy, it was an incredible opportunity. But for myself, I saw an opportunity to take this football universe and wrap it around with layered storytelling, bring it closer to the audience, invest in the athletes even more, bring more technology, and make a property and extend it as if it was a live IP. And when I called my partner, Dwayne Johnson, I said, hey, I want to buy the XFL. This is a crazy idea, but let me tell you why everything we've done in our life has led to this moment. He said, absolutely.
Said absolutely. Gerry, how do you get involved in this? How does Redbird get involved in this?
We were looking at it independently, and I was originally looking at it and consulting with the NFL, with Fox, and thinking through whether or not there was any real binary risk to this. Is there a legitimate demand in the marketplace for spring football? And that initial work that we did really convinced me that there is an interest.
Okay,
in
what
demand.
convinced you there was a demand for spring football? Because we know not just the XFL, but there was was it the AAF and obviously the USFL, which still exists in its new formation. What convinced you there was a demand for spring football?
Look, I mean, football is one of our greatest exports as a country. The Super Bowl ends the season in February. People in that period in the spring, from February to May, people would still like to have NFL quality football. People today also want sports to be entertaining. And I've been fascinated with all the investing that we do. The sort of next frontier potentially is investing in leagues. I look at these leagues and I say, my God, that's a great aggregation of entertainment properties and IP. At the end of the day, what really convinced me on this was when I got the call from Dany and Dwayne, and we
Did
said,
you know them? What was the relationship? Or Dany, how does that happen?
Well,
why does that happen?
We were, like Gerry, we were all assessing the property and thinking about who were the best in-class partners we could actually have the opportunity to work with. And the name, Gerry Cardinale and Redbird Capital, kept coming up, and it was shared that he also had an interest. So we did a mutual outreach to see, what is this and how are we thinking and are we like-minded? And it was fantastic.
So, Dany, I think you said this on ESPN, something I watched with you and Dwayne, did an interview, and you said that it's about, quote, everything around the ball and amplifying it.
Right.
What does that mean? I mean, does that mean a continuation of what we saw in the XFL before? No extra points, faster play clock, in-game interviews? Or what practically is somebody going to see in February they've maybe not seen before?
Well, they are going to see the best practices, right? Faster game clock, rules that make sense, dynamic plays that matter. So, in addition to that, we're looking at innovation as far as what happens before our players even get on the field. How are you introduced and how are you experiencing that? We'll have game activations. We have partnerships coming on so that you're not just watching it, but you're experiencing it, you're feeling the culture. And to continue with that, we have storytelling that's 365 days out of the year. So there's an additional element that we get to do because we own the league. We get to control the culture. We get to be very, very agile.
And before I do this, I'm just going to tell them backstage, I don't have a clock. I should probably have a clock. You know, it's around that. You do own the league, right? And it's been this kind of, there's kind of two ways that pro sports work, right? You have the franchise model, which how the NFL does it, how most European soccer does it, and then you have the own the league, kind of call it the UFC model, which you're following. Why the decision to not try to franchise out the teams?
Look, I think we haven't made that decision. I think in the beginning to launch this, where what we have to step back and say, well, what are we trying to do here? What we're not trying to do is practice Einstein's definition of insanity, where people have tried this before, and I think where we are diverging from what has been tried before is that we're not looking to create a competitor to the NFL. We actually have a great partnership with the NFL.
Is that because no one can? In other words, does the NFL the NFL be competed with?
I go back to my fundamental question: is there a legitimate need in the marketplace for this? There's no legitimate need in the marketplace to compete with the NFL. The NFL is the dean of football.
It's a monopoly.
It's incumbent.
Is it a monopoly?
Is it a monopoly?
Yeah.
Well, I know that's a bad word, but there's a pejorative connotation to that. I would say let me just say there's no need for a second NFL. However, there is a need for a development organization for the NFL on player development. One of the things that I learned is there are 53 players on an NFL team. 53 to 75 could have easily made an NFL team. There's just only 53 slots. So you ask yourself, is there a value proposition we can actually put an NFL quality product on the field, but make it more entertaining? And you have the two best people in the world. If you want to create a live event entertainment company rooted in legitimate football, this is how you do it.
Dany, let me ask one other franchise question. One of the big differences between this XFL and its prior iterations, no team in LA, no team here in New York. Those are two, and to be honest, no team in the four biggest TV markets in the country, because none in Philly or Chicago either. Why?
We were very specific when we were doing our analysis of where our teams would be as far as the cities. So our XFL teams are very, very tied to their communities and tied to football-heavy, football ethos cities where we can thrive, because we knew we were bringing the fans back to the game. So for our analysis, it made tremendous sense to do the locations that we have now, because these larger markets can always be in the future.
There is an elephant or a rock not in the room today. How important is, let's just say, kind of his celebrity status from your perspective to getting, as you said, you talk about the fans, you got to get them in the door the first time, whether that's physically in the stadium or turning on the TV. How important do you feel he is going to be to at least the initial success of the league?
Well, DJ is a force, hands down. I mean, he's an incredible, incredible partner. I would answer that by saying the metrics, the proposition, the business plan that has created the success of Dwayne Johnson is the business plan that Dwayne and I have created and will live within the XFL.
What does that mean? How would you kind of
So I would
catalog
say
that?
The elements that have led to this 450 million followers all over the world, that's the value proposition that we're bringing. Now, Dwayne is deeply involved and super passionate about the XFL. As Gerry had mentioned, he sees himself as player 54, that player who didn't have a chance, even though his plan B turned out very, very well. We don't complain about that. But his involvement as an owner, as a founder, has been invaluable. And the athletes and the audience relates to what he's saying. They see the authenticity. So he's extremely important.
Gerry, you referred to the fact that there is a player development partnership with the NFL. As a piece of this, should folks view the XFL as pro football's minor league?
Look, I mean, there's definitely the potential for that element. One of the two key pieces that Dwayne, Dany, and I have put together in this first reincarnation is a great broadcasting partnership with ESPN and Disney. And a real relationship with the NFL. And I think that relationship with the NFL will touch on player development. The NFL doesn't have a G League, if you will. I think COVID actually woke everybody up that, if half your offensive line is out with COVID, You don't have a minor leagues to go pull guys up on. And and if you subscribe to what I said about 53 to 75 all being great NFL quality players coming out of college and wanting the opportunity to develop themselves further to make a team, this is a great strategic relationship. Then there's health and safety initiatives for the players, and then there's rules innovation. I mean, the NFL, the NFL is a juggernaut, but they are always looking to make the game more entertaining, and who better to consult with than Dwayne and Dany on that?
For players 54 through 75, as you say, I would think some of them coming out of college obviously want the opportunity, as you say. They might also look at past alternative football leagues, particularly the AAF, which kind of seemed to literally strand people in hotel rooms all over the country and told them find your own way home. How do you convince them that there's going to be enough viability to this, that they should not look for another job, another career, something else, and take a shot at this and not be worried that this is going to last 3 months and then they're going to be on the street?
Well, we have transparency of ownership. We're very transparent about what our intention is, how the league is being run. You have to look at the credibility of the executives, our football ops programs, who are leading these teams, our coaches, and then quite simply, the conversation of who's owning this. Redbird Capital, Dwayne, myself, the fact that we are there, we are public, what's our intention. So we actually do very, very well in extending these relationships and sharing the authenticity and our commitment to this league.
Gerry, expanding off from the XFL a little bit, the first time I ever heard of you was kind of when you helped when you were at Goldman, and you helped basically create the Yes Network through that deal with the Yankees. And then obviously you end up forming Redbird, which is a private equity firm that invests in a lot of different things, but a lot of professional sports things. Did you expect, even when you formed Redbird, that there would be a time when private equity funds themselves would actually be buying ownership stakes of pro sports teams, existing pro sports teams?
A great question. I mean, it's a great question if you look at this current moment that we're in, and the whole supply-demand imbalance of this kind of capital, institutionally formed capital, chasing sports as an asset class. When we did Yes back in 2001, we signed that deal the day before 9/11. Nobody knew what sports was, and we had to get on the air in April. That was a game changer. It was a game changer for me personally, but it was a game changer in the industry because never had real scaled institutional capital partnered with rights holders to monetize intellectual property. Well, that was back in 2001. That model has not changed. That is exactly what Dwayne and Dany are doing. The thing I'm fascinated by is you can Venn diagram us and the guys like us and the way we invest and love to build companies and operationalize IP with Dany Garcia and Dwayne Johnson, and then you add ESPN and Disney, and you add a real partnership with the NFL. If we are doing our job and you look at where sports is today, guys like us should be catalysts for evolution. You can't just sit there and just expect things to keep showing up. I mean, we're in a mentality right now in sports where everybody just expects things to keep going up linearly. I think people like us...
Will they not? Because that is the perception, at least when it comes to, call it the big four sports leagues and even European soccer teams, that in general, people always say, wow, they overpaid for that team. Mm-hmm. But don't worry, wait 5 years. Yeah. It's going to look like a bargain. Do you think, is there a plateau to that?
That's why, come back to your question, that's why you see all this private equity money chasing sports, because there's a lot of facile commentary out there that sports, it always goes up. It's non-correlated to the market. If you benchmark sports asset valuations with the S&P, it's very attractive. There's elements to that that's right, but when have you ever, when you've heard that commentary in the past, it doesn't end well, does it? And so,
but in sports, it has ended well. Everyone, it's always ended well.
Until it doesn't. No, I'm not saying it's not going to end well. It's still in a world where technology is disintermediating media consumption. There is no better must-carry content, regionally or nationally or globally, than sports. There's no doubt about it.
Dany, let me ask you, when he talked about the media content, we'll have Jimmy Pitaro, the chair of ESPN, or president of ESPN, here later today. Sarah Fisher will interview him. You obviously have been involved in a lot of parts of entertainment in terms of television and streaming and films. You're a producer on Black Adam, which I am told came out last week. What have you so far learned, if anything, about the difference between getting a sports league and a broadcasting both deal and all the preparation for a sports league as compared to, call it, a more traditional entertainment product?
And I've actually focused more on the similarities than the differences. So one of the best practices on the entertainment side, and specifically for my production company and my films, is that we are rooted in audience first. And that discipline in entertainment and storytelling has given us an incredible advantage to be in a position where when we're looking at studios or we're looking at partnerships, they can see the return of investment we provide, specifically because we are audience first. It's that element that actually ties in perfectly to sports, and that happens to be the biggest risk with sports. When you have ownership that is not thinking of the property and saying, how is the consumer, how is the fan, how is the athlete also as the audience participating in this? Because we have deep-rooted storytelling and we have those skills, and I will say, knock on wood, we've been very grateful to do it very well, Black Adam release. It makes us extremely comfortable in this market and excited to bring this skill set to sports.
Gerry, you mentioned the evolution of financing going into pro sports. One league that has not evolved when it comes to this is the NFL. You still have to be an individual to own a team. Funds cannot. Is that going to change? Are investment funds of some sort at some point going to be able to buy pieces of an NFL team?
Look, I think the NFL is in a class by itself. It doesn't have to. And I'm not sure the other leagues have to, but the other leagues are in a slightly different position than the NFL. I mean, the economics around the NFL are of such a nature that, the opportunity to buy an NFL team is so limited that I think it's fine. I don't think you need to see the rules necessarily change. And they're not going to have their hands forced to change the rules. What's more interesting, though, is as you see generational changeover in ownership. I've always said that I think these sports properties, these teams are mini Disneys, and I think as we go into a world where technology is constantly pushing the envelope and changing the way consumers want to consume and can consume content, there is a role for institutionally formed capital with the breadth of experience that guys like us have in sports to partner with them, right? And so it's less about the values that pushing the values up. It's much more about evolution and can we be good partners to
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that? How do you think, and this is both kind of in current day and in the future, how do you think the involvement of private equity investment funds in pro sports teams has, if at all, affected the on-field product? I mean, for the end users, which I guess me.
Look, you have to look at, the really interesting, case study to that question is European football, right? European football, there are no barriers to entry.
And you guys bought AC Milan, right?
We bought AC Milan. We're in Liverpool. We own Toulouse. So we've done a deep dive on that. And there's no the barrier to institutional capital. There are no ownership restrictions, but you do have the transfer market and you have relegation. And so what's happening is you're starting to see. Everybody now uses data, right? And data analytics has become a big thing in terms of your question on-field performance. And we are looking to continuously push the envelope in terms of the application of data combined with scouting to improve on-the-field performance. What's the definition of improving on-field performance? Well, is you provide a consistently winning product. You don't have to win a Champions League or a World Series every year. You got to provide the value proposition is providing a consistently winning product. And in order to do that holistically, if you're not going to deficit finance it with a finite amount of capital, it's to drive a dollar of cash flow off of a dollar of revenue. And what's fascinating in sports today, which everyone should pay attention to, is things tend to continue to be done on a multiple of revenue. And one of the things we set as a challenge to ourselves as we look at these properties is, well, why isn't it a multiple of cash flow? Why is this industry any different than the other industries that are valued off of those metrics? And I think that's our goal. I think the value proposition in sports, at least for guys like us and partnering with people like Dany and Dwayne, is can we take off the field performance, drive a dollar of cash flow off a dollar of revenue, and then put that back into a winning team.
We have 2 minutes left, so I want to change topics a little bit. Dany, let me start with this. Black Adam does come out last week. Did you, and when I say you and DJ Moore, did you just save the DECU?
Did we what?
Did you just save it?
Oh, that's a triggering question. Did we save DC? I would like to say we kicked open some doors that maybe DC wasn't able to walk through before. So I wouldn't say we saved it. I would say we've added some value. We've proven some very important audience metrics as far as diversity, not only on screen, but as far as the consumers coming to see the movies, and I think we did great work for them.
Can I ask a broader question, which is, so obviously that's a box office success. That's not a stream. You can't stream it. You actually have to go to a theater. You have to watch it on a big screen. Your production company has worked, I think you guys worked on Red Nose, right? So you've worked on some very big budget streaming films. From your perspective, and self-interested, I think, is going to be different, but does it still make sense for whether it be Netflix or Hulu or Amazon to spend enormous money on streaming-only movies as opposed to just putting them in the theaters?
I think, well, that's a great question. It's also being looked at because you're looking to see how much spend is actually translating to, subscribers, right? So that's, and even success for us when we're with Netflix or our movie now that we're doing with Amazon, it's that end user that measures our success in our back end. I think the combination of understanding that people want to go to the theaters, that is still an experience, and building a combined execution, that's what I think people are really looking at in a real way. It's still a huge box office for us globally. You can't ignore that market. So finding a process that combines both is very important.
And I have 30 seconds, so Gerry, this will be a quick question to you. I'm a fan of the Boston Red Sox. You own a piece of the Boston Red Sox. They finished in last place again, behind the Baltimore Orioles. What the hell?
It's the beauty of sports, right? I mean, you look at how competitive they've been, and then 1 year, they're.
Are they going to
last
re-sign
place.
Xander? Are you going to re-sign Xander?
We're looking at it.
Looking at.
I'm still focused on the Yankees at this point. I'm still trying to get over that.
I will say we were supposed to have an Axios business dinner tonight or drinks later tonight, and it was rescheduled to a sports bar so members of our team could watch the Yankees game. So have fun with that, guys. Gerry, Dany, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, guys.